My name is Evan Johnson. I'm the Senior Director of Business Applications at Podium. And in my years in the Salesforce ecosystem, I've done a lot of interviews. I think I've hired maybe 40 or 50 people in my career, and I've interviewed hundreds. So I feel like I've got some background in this. I've got some experience, and hopefully you can walk away from this with some basic tips. There's nothing too crazy we're going to talk about today. There's a lot of very common sense things, but also some interesting things that maybe you didn't think about. So why don't we dive in and let's go to the next slide. I wasn't told who to thank here, so I'm really excited that I can actually thank anybody. I can thank my mom. I can thank really anybody that got me here. I'm just kidding. I assume that what we're doing is thanking you, right, for attending and being a part of this career fair. This is put on by Salesforce, and there's a lot of different community folks like myself that have been part of it to present to you. So thank you for attending. We're really glad you're here. All right. So, real quick, let's talk about what an interview actually is, right? So, the point of an interview is for you, A, to find a company, right? And figure out if that's the right company you want to work for, and for the company to work with you to understand if you're the employee they want to hire, right? Essentially, it's just an exchange of information, nothing more, nothing less. And so a lot of people get worked up about what it is. And, it's a great time. I'll say that, right? The economy is definitely heating up, and I think there's a lot of jobs opening up, and people are hopping around. A lot of people talk about this great migration of people are going to be quitting here in the next few months. And as a manager, that I'm very clearly worried about that. I don't want to lose my team, but that means I'm probably going to be interviewing a lot of people. And in your case, you'll be interviewing with companies like myself that will be looking, right? So what does that mean? As you go about looking for companies that are hiring, you will land that interview, and what do you do next, right? The first thing you should absolutely do is first of all do your research on the company. Okay, there's nothing worse than somebody who comes into an interview totally unprepared, not knowing exactly what we're looking for, not knowing anything about the position, and just not, I guess, curious about the company, about why, what we do. Okay. So there's a lot of ways to do this, right? You could just go on the company website, figure out what products they sell, how are they making money, and then maybe you can find out more information about the company, what they value, and things like that. Just Google around. Heck, you could go on the Better Business Bureau or something and figure out if this is a totally sketchy company, right? There's things like that that you can figure out. Glassdoor is a great place, a great resource where you can actually figure out, hey, do they pay well? What do employees think about the company? Do they rate it highly? Do they think that they're headed in the right direction? The next thing you do is you can look for your interviewer on LinkedIn, right? You should have gotten a calendar invite. You'll have information about your interviewer most likely. You could do a little LinkedIn stalking on them and figure out where they land in the hierarchy, what they maybe value and things like that. I don't think I would recommend connecting with them unless you feel strongly that that's the right move. It's happened to me. It doesn't help your chances of getting a job at all, but it's worth looking into them. And actually, when I notice that somebody jumps in and looks at my LinkedIn profile, I'm always impressed. Okay. And lastly, I will absolutely ask, first of all, what you know about the company, and second, I want some questions. Okay, I want to hear what you know about the company and what you've thought about it, and where those questions come from. So having that knowledge about it, doing the background research is really key. Okay. When you're looking at the companies that you want to apply to, what do you look for, right? So within this new world, a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm only going to work remote going forward. And so the job, that maybe it won't list it or not, maybe the company won't talk about it, but that should absolutely be part of the conversation, is your expectation that, hey, I want to work remote, or maybe you love going into the office. I don't know. There are those people too, right? So just make sure that you understand, is this the right company for me? Are they going to offer what I'm looking for? Are they a good culture fit, right? Am I going to enjoy working with the people that on my team? And do they have the same values that I hold? And you can see that in their mission and vision statement. You can see what the company values and what's important to them. And then finally, let's not kid ourselves. Compensation and benefits. Are they going to provide you what you feel like you're worth? What the going rate is for that position, or are you going to be able to pay your rent? Right. These are key things that you need to know before you take a job. And so that's what that interview is doing. Is they're trying to figure out information about you, okay, and that you can prove that you've done your research and do things like that, and you're trying to get information on them to see if that's the right company that you want to work for. Okay. So an elevator pitch, it's a 30, 60-second pitch. Think of it like you're stuck in an elevator with someone as you're going down the floors. You need to quickly and succinctly tell the interviewer about yourself, okay? This is difficult to do, and it's something that you should practice beforehand, right? I've absolutely it regularly will ask someone, tell me about yourself, right? That's usually the first question I ask, and I want to see what they have to say. And I've gotten 10, 15-minute responses where they just go down their entire resume, and don't do that, okay? Don't give me your resume. I have your resume in front of me. I know exactly where you came from. I know your companies you're working for. What you need to tell me about is who are you, right? Some very basic info. If you're just getting out of school, tell me where you went to school. Tell me what you majored in. You know, it's actually fun to hear a little bit about, very, very basic personal details. I like to mountain bike, for example. That's a hobby of mine. Okay. I don't want to hear, long walks on the beach or, some long-winded answer about yourself, but that's just some basic info. So I get to know you a little better. Where have you been, right? So where have you worked in the past? And that's again just a really brief, like I came from this company and this is what I did. And then why are you looking for a job? Okay, that's important too, right? You should have a really good answer about why you need a job. Maybe you don't like your current employer, or maybe you have never had a job in this world, the ecosystem, and you're just trying to get in, right? So these are things that you should practice, you should polish, and just make sure you're prepared for that question because it will come. Okay. Next, dressing to impress. Okay. Uh, this one seems like common sense, but absolutely, this is something that you should keep in mind, and you should actually think about before you go into that in-person job interview about what you're going to wear. Okay. I think that the last thing you want to be is remembered for what you wore and not your skills, right? That's what you're trying to do is say, hey, I'm really good at this. This is why you need to hire me, rather than I can't believe they showed up in a tux or something like that, right? And that's where that image comes from. That's from Step Brothers, great movie if you haven't seen it. They show up to a job interview for a PE coach and they wear a tux, right? It's hilarious because it's absurd. But that's the thing is you don't want to be remembered for that, okay? The rule of thumb is to dress one level above what you'd wear every day in the office, okay? So if you wear t-shirts in the office every day, I mean, I'm wearing a polo right now, right? And that's actually the culture of my company is a t-shirt. So I don't know. I wear one level up every day, but at a job interview, it's the exact same. You should absolutely wear it one level up, okay? And if that means a button-up shirt or even a tie, right? Maybe it's business casual, throwing that tie on, whatever, right? Figure out what they wear and then try and dress a little bit better than that. Okay. And so, do wear a suit or a blazer or dress shoes, and for the ladies, a skirt or dress, things like that. But don't wear a mini skirt, right? You don't want to wear sweatpants. I love wearing sweatpants at home. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about those flip-flops, but these are not things you wear to a job interview. Okay. So it shouldn't have to be said, but there it is. Just dress normally. So. Okay, next, knowing your body language. So this is something, maybe you don't recognize it, maybe you don't realize it, but everything you do, it tells the interviewer or tells someone else something about yourself, right? It tells you how you're feeling, it tells you how you're reacting to certain things, okay? So this is important in an interview. You should be engaged. You should want to be there. You should be excited. You should be, uh, basically looking at the interviewer and not looking down. These are all things that we recognize and say, either they have really poor social skills or they're not excited to be here, right? And both of those are negative, right? I'm not expecting someone that's, going to be the next president of the United States and has the best demeanor in the world, but somebody that can look at me in the eyes and tell me, hey, this is what I'm all about, and these are my skills. So these are just things that you do, mannerisms, and you might not realize you do them, so maybe practice beforehand. One tip that I've got here is I get nervous. I think all of us do, right? I'm a little nervous right now. And one thing that I always have with me is a water bottle or a glass of water or something like that because drinking actually calms me down. And so my body language improves when I do something that I maybe a crutch like this. So feel free to do something like that. If you need a water bottle or if you can figure out what that is, absolutely go for it. All right. Modern interviews. So we talked a little bit about, classic interviews, right? Dressing for them, but we're in a new world, right? We're in a modern interview world. We talk a lot about the fourth industrial revolution at Salesforce and what that's doing to all of us and all of, how technology is changing and improving our lives. Well, one of the ways that things are changing are interviews. This is actually really, I guess, timely for it falls in line with my experience because I used to work for a company that invented video interviewing. Okay, and that is absolutely the world that I lived in for a very long time. So you may get one of those where you'll get a link from the when you apply for a job, and this is before you hit an interviewer. They'll actually expect you to do a video interview. And that way, as you get 50 or 100 resumes, it's a lot better to see them on video about how they're reacting, and you can get a better sense of who they are. One of the things about that is that you can actually add artificial intelligence, both in, say, like resumes, which is absolutely done, and also in the video interviews itself, right? You can actually look at body language and facial expressions. But your resume, absolutely, you need to look at that and make sure you don't have anything in there. Make sure you don't have any misspelled words or things like that, because there is absolutely artificial intelligence in this world now, and it's going through. It's the only way some of these interviewers can get through 250 resumes is to just do a quick scan through and find problems with them so that they can quickly and easily be removed from the pool of people. Okay, so keep that in mind. Non-traditional interviews, that's kind of the new way to do it as well, whether that be digital whiteboarding. If it's obviously we're doing video calls, that's not that's not new. We're all used to the Zoom call world now, and that's how interviews are for sure, right? Most of the time, what I'll do is do a video call first and just make sure that yeah, this is somebody I want to talk to, and then I'll do an in-person interview, right? So it's kind of both, right? And so whether that's considered non-traditional or not, that's my world now. That's exactly how I operate, and I assume most people are doing it the same. Okay. So continuing on that, what do you do when you're having a video call? You're getting interviewed. The first thing is to wear pants. Okay, and I joke. This happened. This guy didn't realize that he was the video kind of showed him without his pants on, and he showed up on Good Morning America without pants, and it's pretty awesome. We've all done it, right? We've all worn our pajama pants, nice on top and casual on the bottom, but just dress the part. And I'll say that just because it actually does change your mindset, right? When you actually get dressed for something, a lot of people say, "Hey, I get dressed for work every day, even though I work from home." I'm not that crazy, but if you're doing an interview, you should do that, right? It can get you in the mindset of, "Hey, I'm professional, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to rock this interview," right? So wear your shoes, which might seem odd because I'm at home, but put those on there, and then treat it as if you would any regular interview. Prepare for it. Do what you have to do to get ready for that video. Okay. Next thing, find the right environment. This is actually the second time I have done this presentation. And the very first time, I was on a vacation, and it was not ideal. So it was kind of ironic that I was telling everybody to find the right environment when I was in a situation where I was in a closet essentially. So just it's tough, right? Hopefully you're going to take an interview from home. Hopefully you have a room or a quiet space away from screaming kids or dogs or whatever, and you should do that for yourself, right? Keep the distractions out, but also, it's for the interviewer. They want to focus on you, and again, you don't want to be remembered as the guy who has the screaming kid in the background. And it's tough, right? I have both. I have kids and dogs, and it can be tough. But for this job interview, it's really key that you want to be remembered for what you've said and not what was happening in the background. Okay. One thing that I love is when I ask somebody a technical question and I immediately hear typing and then the lights flashing in their eye, in their face, and I know exactly what's going on. They're Googling the question, they're trying to figure out the answer. We know, we've seen it a million times, and we know exactly what you're doing, and it's not impressive if you whip out the right answer. That's not what you should be doing. The best thing you should say is, I don't know, or I'll have to look into that, or something like that. But don't go and search for answers real quick just because you don't know the answer to something, okay? And then finally, some really basic stuff. Just test your headset beforehand. Make sure your video's on. Make sure your internet's working. Things like that. Make sure your laptop was plugged in and has battery if you need it. These are things that are really basic, but they can really screw up an interview if you don't think about that. I this one's tough. I don't think we should have to talk about that, right? But in the world we live in, unfortunately, this is a problem for some, and you should absolutely know your rights. This is specifically for America, right? I'm sure other countries have their own laws, but if you're joining us internationally, you should verify what those are and how they what they mean to you. But basically, the idea is that Again, you should be hired, you should be interviewed, you should be considered based on your skills and not any other factors, right? So in America, it's illegal to ask anything about race or age or religion or national origin, gender, marital status, or sexual orientation, okay? These are questions that are no-nos. And anybody who's interviewing should know this, right? Like everybody's gone through HR training. If it's a really small company, though, or maybe just a bad interviewer, these questions might pop up. And at some point you should be prepared, right? If you fall in some of these protected categories, or if you're just, expecting something like this, just be prepared with a good answer, like, hey, I don't feel like that's a question that I should answer, or something like that, right? You can keep it from getting awkward, and it doesn't need to be a problem. But at some point, you don't need to answer that. You shouldn't answer that. And if it came down to it, I actually probably would reach out to the HR department afterwards if I felt like it was a problem, right? If the questions asked were completely inappropriate. So just again, just know your rights and make sure that everybody has a level field, and that you will be hired or considered based on your skills. Okay. Finally, let's talk about after the interview. So this is absolutely true. 57% of applicants do not send a post-interview thank you note. I would say it's even much higher. I'd say it's like 95% don't. And that's why it's always you really stand out when you send a thank you note. Doesn't need to be quick. It was last one I got was just a quick email, right? And it's just, hey, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. I'd really love to work for the company. It seems like this is a great place to work. Uh, and that's it. Nothing more. Just thank you for your time for interviewing me. Man, when I get that, I absolutely my impression of the woman that sent it to me went up much. It was really, really impressive to see like, wow, she thought of that. That's great. If you have a chance and maybe you're waiting for decisions, don't be afraid to follow up, right? Now, don't be annoying, but at some point, I think recruiters expect it that you want an update. And with us, and when I say recruiters, whether it's the interviewer or the recruiter, right? Make sure that they understand that, hey, you'd love to get an answer, you'd love feedback, you want to know like what the decision is, okay? Sometimes these things take time, and as the interview process goes further and further, if you're one of the first people interviewed, you might not hear back for weeks because they're trying to figure out if, who the right candidate would be for that job. And, just making sure that they know, hey, I'm still here, I'm still really excited, things like that. And then, worst case, you could say, hey, I didn't get the job, do you have any feedback for me? As a hiring manager, as someone that does this a lot, I actually love giving feedback. People ask me all the time in interviews, how did I do? And I'm honest. I've told people straight up, you're not the right candidate for the job, and here's why. And I teach it as like a coaching time, right, where I walk them through it. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback because any good manager will give it to you. Okay. And then finally, let's say everything worked out great. You nailed the interview. You got a job offer. Now what, right? So that's where the negotiation comes in. And, it says here the person with the most info usually wins. What that means is uh, you should play it in a way that they make the offer first based on how much they value you, right? It's tough for them to just say, hey, what do you make now? And then they'll maybe increase that 5 or 10% or whatever and call it good. But maybe your value is much higher than that, and so that's where that negotiation comes into play. So if you can somehow extend that or get them to offer first, that you're always going to be better off, right? Don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't be afraid to counter if you feel like, hey, this is not as much as I would hope. It's not seen as a negative. It's at best it's neutral, and sometimes it actually can see like, wow, this person really thinks they're good. Like I'm impressed. I want this person, and I'm absolutely willing to negotiate. So there you go. Um, so don't be afraid to negotiate. And a lot of times there is a little bit of wiggle room that managers will have, either through equity or through salary or whatever. Heck, extra pay time off. But yeah, know your skills. Okay, know the market. Go on Glassdoor and understand like, hey, this is the going rate in the area. A lot of user groups do salary surveys, and they have a good idea of like, hey, this is what people are making. This is how many years I've been in the market, and this is how many certifications I have. So I'm worth this much. So just go and Google around and get a sense for what that is.